Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at some tricks that pros abuse in order to get an edge in their competitive games. Some of these are simpler tricks and you may already do them or know of them, but it's still a great idea to list them off and take a closer look as we break down each and every trick. Sometimes getting something explained is the best way to learn or excel your ability with it. Not to mention that a lot of these simple tricks are also rarely put into use for some reason, even though a lot of us know that they are important. I think it's simply too easy to forget the simple stuff, and while you're playing such a high-paced game such as Overwatch, it happens all the time. Before we get started, why not hit the like button as it helps us out a ton, and subscribe for some future content, and let's dive straight into the first trick. The first trick we'll be talking about is Strafing, in which pros mix up a variety of different vertical movements in order to dodge incoming attacks. This is honestly done in rapid movements and always includes crouching, moving left and right in specific cases, and jumping. The idea is to move in ways that are least predictable in order to ensure that your enemy's pre-aim gets thrown off. This is way more important when facing off against enemies such as Hanzo, Mei's long distance shot, Roadhog's hooks, etc, etc. These abilities can only land with pre-aim predicting, so throwing them off will ensure a secure and safe dodge on your end. Don't get me wrong though, this is of course extremely useful against characters such as Widow, Soldier, McCree, as it simply makes their life harder when aiming at you. The next big tip is ultimate tracking. Pros abuse this ability to predict enemy ultimates and how much each ultimate is being used. Things like saving your Reaper ultimate until the enemy Zenyatta pops their ultimate is a good way of not getting countered. Another example is with your own teammates. If I'm playing Tracer, I should save my pulse bomb to throw it into a friendly teammate's grav in order to make a good combo. And it shows how important tracking both the enemy teams as well as your own team's ultimates is super critical. And don't get me wrong, tracking isn't easy by any means, especially the enemy teams, but if you're at 80% ultimate and the enemy Zenyatta popped his ultimate, then you have an idea that when your ultimate is up, you can safely pop it without being countered. On the other hand, if you look at your ultimate and it's 10% when Zenyatta used his, then it's likely he might have it back up when your ultimate is ready, meaning you should bait it out or wait for him to exhaust it before going in with yours. It's definitely a hard thing to master overall, but I think it's very satisfying and honestly very crucial, especially in competitive play, even in the lower ranks, since communication can kind of lack. This means you're going to have to use your own intelligence and your own knowledge to get the best of the enemy team. Alright, so the next tip is definitely one of the most important and underused tips I can share. This is to do with target management, calling targets out. You'll often see pros players attempting to kill high value targets, and these values are placed on how essential the enemy is to the team comp and how vulnerable they are in this situation. Now, let me give you an example. So, in a strong comp, a Winston and Zarya are an insane initiate. So if you and your team catch out the Zarya, everyone should call to focus her and take her down as quickly as possible. This then disables Winston from jumping in since he'll die without his Zarya bubble, delaying the overall engage from the enemy team and buying yourself some crucial time. Another big thing is how values can also be placed on the ultimate status of the target, which goes hand in hand with the ultimate tracking we discussed above. If you predict that the Reaper has his ultimate but your Lucio doesn't have his ultimate to counter it in a team fight, then you and your team should call and focus that Reaper down to keep him out of the team fight before initiating one in order to give yourselves the upper hand. By the time the enemy Reaper has returned, your Lucio should have his ultimate up and you can get ready to counter. To put it simply, you're essentially pairing these two tips together. Through target management and ultimate tracking, you're about to foil a plan before the enemies can put that plan into action. And while I understand this can be tricky, especially in solo competitive in lower ranks, I still highly recommend everyone, if they can, use their voice and simply shout out what you want to do. You can say Mercy's about to have her ultimate, everyone shoot her, she's top left, she's in the sky, she's next to Farah, you guys all focus her, and that is more than enough to give you the upper hand. With enough practice, you'll become a better shot caller, a better predictor, and overall you'll have a better idea of what's going on during the game. Anyways, that's enough with that tip, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so moving from there, we need to discuss team composition. Now, this obviously sounds like a no-brainer, but the truth is very few teams are actually discussing or choosing a strong team comp. Everyone plays what they want, with very little thought, which is unfortunate since it may be the single reason most players struggle to climb an SR. Now, if we talk about the pros, they will pick a team comp based off what's available to them. This being either based on the enemy team's weaknesses, based on your team's strengths, or based on the most effective compositions that are available. Dive, Goat, 3-3 are good examples of that. Now in ranked play, it's usually just going to be based off of that third point. In a high level, then the first and second point may be taken into consideration, since most high level players in ranks know one another, so they can predict who's going to play what. I think what's most important to note is that direct counters are important, but not as important as what's truly in meta. At the moment, at least right now while I'm recording this, Goats has simply been the way, and it's just too strong, and no matter what the various counters even pro players have tried, they've always failed. And as cheesy and as annoying as it is, the truth is, playing what's overpowered is what works. Now, another obvious one, but also a very, very underrated trick, is positioning. Pros will always position in a manner where they are able to help one another. I mean, how many times have you guys played Ana, but had your team Genji run halfway across the map and then yell for help? It happens, and it happens a lot due to poor team positioning. Pros will always be ready to push and soak damage from one another by being close but spread out all at the same time. The ability to help and assist in high level play is extremely needed, and it allows you to be able to quickly identify which teammates will need help without each teammate requiring to put a high amount of attention to where each of their allies are at. Admittedly, this is the hardest tip to implement in solo play or even duo play. With that being said, small things like positioning yourself as Ana way in the back to best heal everyone while keeping an eye on the enemy and being safe is super important and something a solo player can practice easily. Okay, next up we have heal cycling. This is a more advanced trick in which healing up to full may not actually be the smartest thing to do. Let me explain a little, since it sounds very weird. Basically, it'll probably be better for you as a support to only heal up to something maybe like 80%, but instead of snagging the health pack for yourself, you should let your DPS grab it so he can be at 100% for the next fight. Another good way to put it is prioritize based on the moment. If you're a healer and need to heal 3 different people, it'll be up to you to quickly decide how you'll cycle your healing from the most important, the closest to dying, or maybe the player who is most in danger. Always keep in mind, as you have to choose, you have to keep in mind which player can retreat or stay alive long enough to get to them later, or who might die on the spot. The truth is, a Genji can deflect and dash, but if you just saw him jump in with those 2 abilities, you might need to back him up quickly. While on the other hand, a Roadhog who's more tanky and still has his heal up can get himself into a safe spot and wait for your healing. With that being said though, let's move from talking about cycling and talking about recycling. Ultimate recycling is a trick in which you would have to tank or soak up damage on purpose as Mercy heals him from a safe distance in order to build up her ultimate charge way faster than you normally would. It's a pretty simple concept and actually super easy to apply. I actually purposely do it on Mei and Roadhog by taking damage at peak points in order to self-heal and charge up my ultimate, and it works very effectively, and it's something you can apply solo, which is the best part. Now my next tip is simple. Take the high ground. It kind of applies back to positioning, but it's something worth noting. I mean, taking height on enemies who can't do anything about it allows for a line of sight that is super favorable for you. You'll see a lot of pro widows and soldiers play on super high heights to spray down tanks, and they're in places that the tanks can't get back at them. Getting above a Reinhardt doesn't leave much for Reinhardt to do, similar to how Pharah can sort of abuse Reaper because Reaper can't shotgun up that high. With all that being said, the last tip is a very simple one and quick. It ties back into positioning similar to our last tip, and it's about always having a line of sight. Make sure you're always in a position to see your teammates and, if you can, the enemies. If your teammates fall behind a wall, you can no longer do anything to help them or support them. So keep on your toes and make sure you are always holding certain angles that allow you to create things like damage funnels in which you and your teammates can abuse the enemies more than they can abuse you back. Anyways, with all that being said, this does just about wrap up what we have for today. What tip do you guys think is the most important? And let me know in the comments below, and we can open up a discussion about how we're all bronzes trying to become top 500 gods. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video, then why not hit the like button and subscribe for some future content. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.